Let's take a look at personality. When we speak of someone's personality, we use many adjectives to describe how they act and seem to think. As organizations behaviorists, however, we recognize personality characteristics by overall traits. Think of personality as the sum of the ways in which an individual reacts and interacts with others. We most often describe personality in terms of measurable traits a person exhibits. The most common means of measuring personality is through self-report surveys, in which individuals evaluate themselves on a series of factors, such as I worry a lot about the future. In general, when people know their personality scores are going to be used for hiring decisions, they rate themselves as more conscientious and emotionally stable than if they're taking the test to learn more about themselves. An early debate centered on whether an individual's personality is the result of heredity or environment. Personality appears to be the result of both. However, research tends to support the importance of heredity over environment. People's scores on dependability tend to increase over time, as when young adults start families and establish careers. Personality is more changeable in adolescence and more stable in adults. Early work in personality tried to identify and label enduring characteristics that describe an individual's behavior, including shy, aggressive, submissive, lazy, ambitious, loyal, and timid. When someone frequently exhibits these characteristics and they're relatively enduring over time and across situations, we call them personality traits. The more consistent the characteristic, the more important it is in describing the individual. Throughout history, people have sought to understand what makes individuals behave in different ways. Many of our behaviors stem from our personalities, so understanding the components of personality help us predict behavior. Important theoretical frameworks and assessment tools help us categorize and study these dimensions. The most widely used and best known personality frameworks are the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, MBTI, and the Big Five personality model. Both describe a person's total personality through exploration of the facets of personality. Other frameworks explain certain aspects, but not the total of an individual's personality. The Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, or MBTI, is one of the most widely used personality assessment instruments. It's a 100-question personality test. Respondents are classified as extroverted or introverted, E or I, sensing or intuitive, S or N, thinking or feeling, T or F, and judging or perceiving, J or P. Extroverted individuals are outgoing, sociable, and assertive. Introverts are quiet and shy. Sensing types are practical and prefer routine and order, and they focus on details. Intuitives rely on unconscious process and look for the big picture. Thinking types use reason and logic to handle problems. Feelings types rely on their personal values and emotions. Judging types want control and prefer order and structure. Perceiving types are flexible and spontaneous. The MBTI describes personality types by identifying one trait from each of the four pairs. For example, INTJs are visionaries with original minds and great drive. They're skeptical, critical, independent, determined, and often stubborn. ENFJs are natural teachers and leaders. They're rational, motivational, intuitive, idealistic, ethical, and kind. ESTJs are organizers. They're realistic, logical, analytical, decisive, and perfect for business or mechanics. The ENTP type is innovative, individualistic, versatile, and attracted to entrepreneurial ideas. This person tends to be resourceful in solving challenging problems but may neglect routine assignments. According to the Myers-Briggs Foundation, introverts account for over 50% of the EI responses in the US population. Indeed, two of the three most common MBTI types are introverts, ISFJ and ISTJ. ISFJs are nurturing and responsible, and ISTJs are dutiful and logical. The least common types are the INFJ, insightful and productive, and the ENFJ, focused and decisive. The MBTI is used by over 2.5 million people each year, and 89 of the Fortune 500 companies use it. Evidence is mixed about the validity as a measure of personality, however. Most of the evidence is against it. One problem with the MBTI is that the model focuses a person into one type or another. That is, you're either introverted or extroverted. There's no in between. Another problem was with the reliability of the measure. When people retake the assessment, they often receive different results. The MBTI can thus be a valuable tool for increasing self-awareness and providing career guidance. The Big Five model proposes that five basic dimensions encompass the significant variation in personality. Test scores of these traits do a very good job of predicting how people behave in a variety of real-life situations and remain relatively stable for an individual over time, with some daily variations. These are the Big Five factors. The conscientious dimension is a measure of personal consistency and reliability. A highly conscientious person is responsible, organized, dependable, and persistent. The emotional stability dimension taps a person's ability to withstand stress. People with emotional stability tend to be calm, self-confident, and secure. The extroversion dimension captures our relational approach towards the social world. Extroverts tend to be gregarious, assertive, and sociable. Introverts tend to be more thoughtful, reserved, timid, and quiet. The openness to experience dimension addresses the range of interests and fascination with novelty. Open people are creative, curious, and artistically sensitive. The agreeable dimension refers to an individual's propensity to defer to others. Agreeable people are cooperative, warm, and trusting. People who score low on agreeableness are cold and agnostic. There are many relationships between the Big Five personality dimensions and job performance, and we're learning more about them every day. Research indicates that the Big Five traits have the most verifiable links to important organizational outcomes. But they're not the only traits a person exhibits, nor are they the only ones with OB implications. Except for neuroticism, the Big Five traits are what we call socially desirable. Researchers have found that 3 other socially undesirable traits, which we all have in varying degrees, are also relevant to organizational behavior. Because of their negative nature, researchers have labeled these the dark triad. The dark triad might sound sinister, but these traits are not clinically pathologies hindering everyday functioning. Sustained high levels of dark personality traits can cause individuals to derail their careers and personal lives. The personality characteristic of Machiavellism, often abbreviated Mach, is named after Niccolò Machiavelli, who wrote the 16th century about how to gain and use power. An individual high in Machiavellism is pragmatic, maintains emotional distance, and believes ends can justify means. If it works, use it, is consistent with high Mach perspective. Machiavellism does not positively predict overall job performance. High Mach employees, by manipulating others to their advantage, win in the short term at a job, but they lose those gains in the long term because they're not well liked. In psychology, narcissism describes a person who fantasizes of grand success, a tendency to exploit situations and people, and a lack of empathy. However, narcissists can be hypersensitive and fragile people. When they receive feedback about their performance, they often tune out information that conflicts with their positive self-perception, but they'll work harder if rewards are offered. Psychopathy is part of the dark triad, but in organizational behavior, it does not connotate clinical mental illness. In the OB context, psychopathy is defined as a lack of concern for others and a lack of guilt or remorse when actions cause harm. Measures of psychopathy attempt to assess the motivation to comply with social norms, impulsivity, willingness to use deceit to obtain desired ends, and disregard, that is, lack of empathetic concern for others. Personality traits have both positive and negative aspects. The degree of each trait in a person and the combination of traits matter to organizational outcomes. Core self-evaluations are conclusions individuals have about their capabilities, competence, and worth. People who have positive CSEs like themselves and see themselves as effective and in control of their environment. Those with negative CSEs tend to dislike themselves, question their capabilities, and view themselves as powerless. CSEs relate to job satisfaction because people who are positive on this trait seem to like more challenge in their jobs and attain more complex jobs. People with positive CSEs perform better than others because they set more ambitious goals, are more committed to their goals, and persist longer in attempting to research them. People who have high CSEs provide better customer service, are more popular with coworkers, and perform especially well if they feel that their work provides meaning and is helpful to others. Therefore, people with high CSEs may thrive in organizations with high corporate social responsibility. Self-monitoring describes an individual's ability to adjust behavior to situational factors. High self-monitors show considerable adaptability in adjusting their behavior to external situational factors. They are highly sensitive to external cues and can behave differently in varying situations, sometimes presenting striking contradictions between their public persona and their private lives. Low self-motivators can't disguise themselves in that way. They tend to display their true dispositions and attitudes in every situation. Hence, there's high behavioral consistency between who they are and what they do. Evidence indicates that high self-monitors pay closer attention to the behavior of others and are more capable of confronting than are low self-monitors. High self-monitors have less commitment to their organizations and better performance ratings. Those with a proactive personality identify opportunities, show initiative, take action, and persevere. Proactive individuals have many desirable behaviors that organizations covet. They have higher levels of job performance and do not need much oversight. They tend to be satisfied with their jobs, committed to their organizations, and tend to engage in more networking behaviors. Proactive individuals often achieve career success. Personality traits predict many important organizational outcomes. Many studies of job seekers have found that conscientiousness and extroversion predicted success. Conscientiousness is such a powerful predictor that in one study of 4,000 British adolescents, the less conscientious of them were twice as likely to be unemployed than those with higher conscientiousness levels. Research also suggests that time structure is important for enabling the unemployed to cope effectively with that unemployment. Conscientiousness strongly predicts the creation of time structure. Overall, one review suggests that conscientiousness and extroversion are the two strongest predictors of job behavior, although self-esteem and self-efficacy, parts of CSE, are also important. Additional work on unemployed university students suggests that positive effectivity is also important in getting interviews, job offers, and becoming employed. The positive effect enables students to have a clearer and more open perspective towards the job search process, engage in more self-monitoring of their motivation, and reduce procrastination. It appears that extroversion, conscientiousness, and positive effectivity tend to have a substantial effect on becoming employed and coping with unemployment. The experience of unemployment is not the same for everyone across the board. It can be different for new entrants to the labor market, those who've just lost their jobs, and those who are employed and seeking jobs. Can we expect the effect of personality to differ in each of these contexts? Situation strength theory proposes the way personality translates into behavior depends on the situation. Strong situations show us that the right behavior is, pressure us to exhibit it, and discourage the wrong behavior. In weak situations, conversely, anything goes, and thus we're freer to express our personality in behavior. Researchers have analyzed situation strength in organizations in terms of 4 elements. Clarity, or the degree to which cues about work duties and responsibilities are available and clear. Jobs high in clarity produce strong situations because individuals can readily determine what to do. Consistency, or the extent to which cues regarding work duties and responsibilities are compatible with one another. Jobs with high consistency represent strong situations because all the cues point towards the same desired behavior. Constraints, or the extent to which individuals' freedom to decide or act is limited by forces outside of their control. Jobs with many constraints represent strong situations because an individual has limited individual discretion. Consequences are the degree to which actions have important implications for the organization. Jobs are important consequences and represent strong situations because the environment is heavily structured to guard against mistakes. Some researchers have speculated that organizations are strong situations because they impose rules, norms, and standards that govern behavior. These constraints are usually appropriate. Managers need to recognize their role of situation strength in the workplace and find a balance. Trait activation theory, TAT, predicts that some situations activate a trait more than others. TAT also applies to personality tendencies. Together, situation strength and trait activation theories show that the debate over nature versus nurture might be best framed as nature and nurture. Not only does each affect behavior, but they interact with one another. Put another way, personality and the situation both affect work behavior, but when the situation is right, the power of personality to predict behavior is even higher. Having discussed personality traits, we can now turn to values. Values are often very specific and describe belief systems rather than behavioral tendencies. Some beliefs or values reflect personality, but we don't always act consistently with our values. Values represent basic convictions that a specific mode of conduct is preferable to an opposite mode. Values contain a judgmental element because they carry an individual's idea about what is right or desirable. They have both content and intensity attributes. The content attribute says a mode of conduct or end state of existence is important. The intensity attribute specifies how important it is. We can rank values in terms of intensity. We obtain that person's value system. We all have a hierarchy of values according to the relative importance we assign to values such as freedom, pleasure, self-respect, honesty, obedience, and equality. Values tend to be relatively stable and enduring. Many of the values we hold are established in our early years by parents, teachers, friends, and others. If we question our values, we may change, but more often they're reinforced. Values lay the foundation for understanding attitudes and motivation, and they influence our perception. We enter an organization with preconceived notions of what ought and ought not to be. These notions contain our interpretations of right and wrong and our preferences for certain behaviors or outcomes. Regardless of whether they clarify or bias our judgment, values influence our attitudes and behaviors at work. Personality job fit theory identifies 6 personality types and explores job satisfaction and turnover. There are cultural implications for person job fit that speak to workers' expectations that jobs will be tailored. In individualistic countries where workers expect to be heard and respected by management, increasing person job fit by tailoring the job to the person increases the individual's job satisfaction. However, in collectivist countries, person job fit is a weaker predictor of job satisfaction because people don't expect to have a job tailored to them, so they value person job fit efforts less. Therefore, managers in collectivistic cultures should not violate cultural norms by designing jobs for individuals. Rather, they should seek people who will likely thrive in jobs that have already been structured. Person organization fit means people are attracted to organizations that match their values. Using the Big Five terminology, for instance, we could expect that extroverts fit well with aggressive and team-oriented cultures. People high on agreeableness match better with a supportive organizational climate. Following these guidelines when hiring should yield employees who fit better with the organization's culture, which should, in turn, result in higher employee satisfaction and reduced turnover. Research on person organization fit also looks at whether a person's values match the organization's culture. A match predicts high job satisfaction, commitment to the organization, and task performance as well as low turnover. It's more important than ever for organizations to manage their image online because job seekers view company websites as part of their pre-application process. Applicants want to see a user-friendly website that outlines company philosophies and policies. Other avenues of fit are worth examining in terms of organizational fit. These include person-group fit and person-supervisor fit. Person-group fit is important in team settings, where the dynamics of the team interactions significantly affect work outcomes. Person-supervisor fit has become an important area of research because poor fit in this dimension can lead to lower job satisfaction and reduced performance. All dimensions of fit are sometimes broadly referred to as person-environment fit. Each dimension can predict work attitudes which are partially based on culture. One of the most widely referenced approaches for analyzing cultural variations was done by Hofstede. Hofstede surveyed more than 116,000 IBM employees in 40 countries about their work-related values and found that managers and employees varied on 5 value dimensions of natural culture. Power distance describes the degree to which people in a country accept that power in organizations is distributed unequally. Collectivism emphasizes a tight social framework in which people expect others in groups of which they're a part of to look after them and protect them. Hofstede's construct of masculinity is the degree to which the culture favors traditional masculine roles, such as achievement, power, and control, as opposed to viewing men and women as equals. Uncertainty avoidance refers to the preference for structured over unstructured situations. Cultures low in uncertainty avoidance are more accepting of ambiguity and less rule-oriented, take more risks, and accept change more readily. This typology measures a society's devotion to traditional values. It's the long-term versus short-term orientation. People in a culture with long-term orientation look to the future and value thrift, persistence, and tradition. Research across 598 studies with more than 200,000 respondents has investigated the relationship of Hofstede's cultural values and a variety of organizational criteria at both the individual and the national level of analysis. Overall, the 5 original culture dimensions were found to be equally strong predictors of relevant outcomes. Hofstede's framework may be a valuable way of thinking about differences among people. The Globe Research Program is an ongoing, cross-cultural investigation of leadership and national culture. Using data from 825 organizations in 62 countries, the Globe team identified 9 dimensions on which national cultures differ. Some dimensions, such as power distance, individualism versus collectivism, uncertainty avoidance, gender differentiation, like masculinity versus femininity, and future orientation resemble the Hofstede dimensions. The Globe framework added dimensions such as humane and performance orientations. Which framework is better, Hofstede's or the Globe? That's hard to say, and each has its supporters. We give more emphasis to Hofstede's dimensions here because they've stood the test of time and the Globe study confirmed them. For example, a review of the organizational commitment literature shows that both Hofstede and Globe's individual collectivism dimensions operated similarly. Both frameworks showed organizational commitment tends to be lower in individualistic countries.